does it, it shoots over, it can program it to shoot where
It can direct its beams where you're
I
missing the
know,
signal.
Victoria's not
So-
here yet. Can you just give me 5 minutes?
Can I- so-
It's okay. You're just going to be recording their conversation.
So why would it be cheaper for him to rent towers than use the same technology for AT&T?
I guess I
to do
could
the same
still-
thing on their own towers?
You would suggest turn back.
They
It
don't-
costs money, obviously, to do it well. And AT&T's already got the subscriptions from, so if you have bad service with AT&T at a certain spot in America, it doesn't pay for them to, and that's what it's like, well, how are you gonna get these people? So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're recording this, just to let you know. Okay, as long as you're happy with that. Okay. We're going to start the meeting, Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting, October 19th. Is there anybody for public comment? Courtesy of the floor. I thought there might be one out there. Can you, as you approach, or when you approach, can you please state your name and your address for the record in the microphone?
Yes, my name is Robert Blasko, Blasko. My address is 2510 Reddington Road, and that's in Lower Saucon Township. I don't know why Victoria's not here. I spoke to her this afternoon. I
She's
know
2
she
minutes
was.
Yep.
That's Priscilla, okay.
She'll be here, don't worry.
Oh, she'll be here? Good.
Yeah.
Yes, I live on one of the properties that's within half a mile of the proposed landfill expansion. When my wife and I purchased the property in '07, we had no idea that the landfill really was even anywhere near us. I grew up in Rigglesville. We owned a home in Rigglesville. After the floods in 5, 6, and 7, my wife said, I can't take it anymore. We're out of here. So we began looking for a place, and we chose this place on Reddington Road because it was zoned rural agricultural. Now, I knew that because I was involved and still am involved with the Easton Fish and Game Club. And I was on the board for a while there, and that's how I knew already that it was zoned rural agricultural. We never, in our wildest dreams, even thought anything about the landfill or it expanding this close to our place. If they get these conservation easements repealed, which were to be in perpetuity, I guess originally from the understanding, that will bring that landfill all the way down to, they already own less than half a mile from my house now because they bought the Steel City Gun Club out from Bethlehem. And up until 6 months ago, we never had anyone interested in buying our property. In the last 6 months, we've had 5 different people now contact us, 5 different real estate people. Now, who do you suppose is behind that? And not very difficult to figure out as far as I'm concerned. I want to say that we appreciate the fact that the council had voted to, and I recognize some of the people here as being on that when we took that vote, or you took the vote, to support opposing the landfill, the expansion of the landfill. I did some research. There are, I think it's 65 counties in Pennsylvania, 47 landfills, and 4 of them, I think, are in Northampton County.
3.
3? Okay. I think we've had our share of putting up with New York and New Jersey's garbage, to be honest with you. I mean, this landfill originally was started for the local people and now expanded to the point where Waste Connections is in Texas and they want to control everything. It was already discovered in their minutes of several years ago, as you people know, planning for the future, it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead, that they want to actually put a railroad spur in. And they turn around now in one of the last meetings, and they've said, well, we'll put more land aside that we won't use for that. But when questioned, will it remain so, they won't give you a straight answer even. We've seen it time and time again where it's more or less public knowledge. Well, the landfill, it's even in some of their reports. If we don't get this next expansion, we've got 5 years. And then as well, we've only got 5 years. And here we are 15, 20 years later, because every 4, 5, or 6 years, they turn around and say, we need to expand. It's going to be very disruptive. There are people that own farms in our area that have poured their heart and souls into the buildings and into those farms. And this will bring it right up to their back door also. When Easton Fish and Game was renting a piece of property for a range from, Shrins, right off the 78 exit there in Easton, I couldn't even go to the range and use it at that point because that smell nauseated me. And if they bring this up that close to my house, this was to be our forever home. We're at an age where we can't monetarily, physically, emotionally, we can't take having to pack everything up and move again. Please stand behind this expansion. They're going to end up poisoning the river. They're saying they're going to build a wall. The permit asked for 80 feet. Now, from what I saw lately I believe it was in the Call or Lehigh Valley News Live, they've got permission actually to go 117 feet high, roughly 3,300 feet long. That's over 3/5 of a mile. That's one heck of a wall. And it gets washed out up there. A year or two ago, it was washed out for about a year before they actually could come in and fix the roads. And just this last big storm we had, this quote unquote 500-year storms, which we've had several of in the last 10 years, it washed out again. Even went right down. I've got pictures of it on my phone. They had to bring in equipment on the railroad to even clear the railroad so that the trains could run. So please oppose this. It's not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I just want to remind everybody that they have 5 minutes at the podium, but I was generous to anybody who wants to speak today because we don't have a very full agenda. So, Robert.
I appreciate it.
Yep, not a problem. Thank you for speaking. Do we have any other public comments? Go ahead. Or she can come first. She was here a while, so let her go first.
Okay, no, if you want to go off, you're fine.
I know, you're chomping at the bit to get
No,
up
I'm
here,
really
aren't you?
not. Hi, my name is Amber Palos. I live at 2596 Reddington Road in Lower Saucon Township. You know, I won't take up too much of your time. Honestly, I can only speak to you on a personal level. Not really facts, statistics, sorry. Didn't come armed that way. Just a little bit about me. My family is originally from New Jersey. We were right over the water from Staten Island. So my family saw the importance of coming out to this area to get us away from a lot of what was going on, pollution, traffic, yada, yada. I, growing up here, fell in love with the Lehigh Valley, Northampton County. I mean, I learned how to snowboard. I learned how to kayak. I love everything that this county has to offer. You can go hiking. You have all of it right here in your backyard, right? So why would I want to leave? Met my husband, who happened to be from Hellertown. He proposed to me right where the Lehigh River and Delaware River meet. I mean, we have a lot of history here. So when we wanted to build our home, we chose our plot. And a lot of it also had to do with our 2 boys, who we wanted a future for. And that rural agricultural zoning is extremely important to us because we wanted to protect them. Now, I have to live in constant fear of what is gonna happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because I don't know if we're gonna poison our children if we stay where we are with this proposal on the table. I'm sorry, it's just hard. And I feel like a broken record because he said this before. He's angry, I'm angry, we're hurt. But we poured everything that we had into this for their future and because of how much this meant to us. And to have that snatched away for greed just is absolutely devastating. And I just don't see where the due diligence has been done to prove to me and my family that our health and our lives and that the whole Lehigh Valley has been taken into consideration with this expansion project, because you are putting a lot of people at risk. And that is just pure greed across the table. I don't see it any other way. I apologize for my emotions here, but that's just how I see it. So again, thank you for your time. I hope you take these things into consideration and the things that people have been saying that in other forums have been falling on deaf ears. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber. And
Hello there.
again, just state your name and your address for the record, okay?
Okay. I'm Matt and my wife Jean Rabel. We run the Rustic Dreams Bed and Breakfast in Bethlehem Township. And we were just featured in Pennsylvania Magazine, a 2-page showing of the inside of the house and also the story of the Lenape settlement that we have the land for because of the cliffs on both sides, and that's where they settled in to have their fishing, and we find a lot of arrowheads, hammerstones, that kind of stuff. So WFMZ had a nice interview with me, and they were outside and they were talking. They said, "What's that smell?" I said, "I don't smell it." I was so used to it.
Blind.
I got, oh my God, how could you get, but you do for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, they asked me what it is. I said, well, obviously it's a landfill, but that bothered me for my guests. That the guests, they're kind of like, they're not there that much. Usually they're often running to somewhere else, tourism, and that kind of thing. But we are rated on top with Google. And what I don't like is when I come over the hill, you can see the landfill now. Years ago, when I first moved there 20-some years ago, they said, in fact, Lisa Boscoli was in on it, that they would not come over to the mountain. You would not see them at all. Well, they do anyway now, I'm saying. And you can see and you can hear the dozers. You know how they make the backup noise,
Yeah.
the backup signal and that kind of stuff. Well, that echoes because it's in a section that it amplifies the sound. That's annoying. That's probably my biggest gripe is all the contamination of the Lehigh. The Lehigh is 7th, I guess, in the nation for contamination of pollution, according to American Rivers Association. And we're trying to get it better, and all the people that are involved trying to make it better. This, I think, is going the other way. That's all. Gene, do you have anything? No? Well, thanks for your attention. You guys are busy, so I appreciate it.
We got an hour, so,
I'm sorry.
we have an hour. So we're here at this meeting because we want to hear all of you, and I appreciate you.
I'm sorry, I don't have my hearing aids in.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, it's one of those things.
It's very
I rushed
seldom
down
that
here.
somebody asks me to speak up and
Oh,
be
there you go.
louder. But I can do that. And I was just saying, thank you for coming. We have an hour that's dedicated just to this subject, actually.
Oh,
And
thanks.
so we
Thank
want to
you.
take the time, or at least I've scheduled the time, to hear your concerns, and this is a concern of mine as well.
Oh, thank you, yeah. I was, my buddies, I'm retired now, 16 years altogether, right? And the first thing they said at breakfast, geez, we saw you on WFMC. That's disgusting. Why must we see you after all these 15 years? We meet every month, you know, and they're busting on me because here I turn on the news and there you are. I said, geez, you can't get away from it, Chico. They're all moaning and groaning. But anyway, they survived.
I guess the only other thing I would say is that it seems like unless there is a lot of pressure on this group, they are not going to waver at all. They're just going to keep pushing and pushing. And it's a smaller township where the whole thing started. It's kind of seemed to me, anyway, from the information I had, they kind of went in the back door with this, thought people weren't going to be watching and paying attention. And it's been the last, almost a year already, that this group of citizens is really banded together from all parts that are really affected by it. And our biggest concern certainly is overall, but specifically about the Lehigh River. I was surprised when I realized it's in the top 10 of the most endangered rivers in the country for being polluted. And there's no way, if I can see it from my house, I live on this side of the Lehigh River, across the mountain from Lower Saucon, you can see where they've already dug up the mountain. Well, that's gonna run, the mountain goes like this, it's
Right.
gonna run right down. There's no way. I can't imagine that they would have, they'll tell us they'll have protections for that. I can't believe it. I would be amazed that they would have
What part
that.
of Bethlehem Township do you live in, like right along the
We
river
are-
on that road?
We are south, we are on Wilson Avenue by the trail, by the DNL
Oh,
Trail. We
okay.
live right along that.
I know, like near, there's a horse farm around there.
There, behind us, there are some horses, yes,
Oh,
there
I
are.
know that very well.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
grew
yeah.
up on 7th Street, and I used to
We're in
run down there all the time, and
We're in
yeah.
front of Steve's, Mika.
Oh, okay.
Everyone knows Steve.
Steve,
Yeah, everyone knows Steve, but it's really, our area too is agricultural recreation.
Recreational,
Recreation,
yeah.
because the towpath, and the towpath is right there. That's another big, feature in the county in terms of recreational, and we're right along that DNL trail.
Yeah,
That
sure
certainly would be
is.
affected too, and that group has been really helpful in our group to be able to band together and make some noise about this, because it seems like it's,
well, I believe that trail meets up with the National Heritage Corridor.
is the Heritage
that's
Corridor there, yeah.
Closer to, but the one that they're talking, yes, because it's impacted by the landfill expansion, and I think that's one of the things that we had discussed before.
Yeah.
But this is why we're bringing this resolution here today, and hopefully it will pass. That's my hope and dream.
yeah, that's my hope as well, so.
Because, we realize that Northampton County can lend support to your concerns, and that the more support you get, the more power the opposition to the landfill expansion is, right?
Right.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments from the public at this point? Okay, we got one more. Is she coming up?
Yeah, she's not going to the bathrooms.
No, she raised her hand, and as a teacher, I know when somebody raises their hand, they got something to say.
This is not my forte. I'm Elizabeth Blasco. I'm Bob's wife. I live at 2510 Reddington Road as well. It's emotional. We moved there in 2007 thinking this would be our forever home. We have chickens and goats, and we have a beautiful garden, and we have a nice home that we've worked on and renovated, and it means so much to us. It's my refuge from the world. You go home and it's quiet, except for trains going by occasionally. But again, the sound kind of, you don't hear it anymore when you're used to it. But it's a beautiful place. We love it there. We didn't know about this landfill or that they could move so close to us. We have wonderful friends up the hill who are also suffering under this stress and pressure. Beautiful homes, beautiful farmland. It's just an absolutely wonderful place. The people down across the railroad tracks from us that own that property it runs all the way up along the river. They have wonderful property and deer and hunting, and it's an absolutely beautiful place to go and see. And I just want you to know how important this is to us, that you are standing with us, and it means so much to us to have you behind us, supporting us. And I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, any other comments? Okay, at this time, I just want to make a note that our update on the karst geology is not going to happen today. They asked to, or requested to wait until they had the response from Boozy Unisem to the DEP meeting that occurred on October 5th. So we will schedule that at a later time as soon as we get that response. And this is in reference to a deepening permit that has been ongoing. All right? So that leaves our presentation of the Bethlehem landfill expansion, and I would invite Victoria Optoff Cordero to come up for that.
Thank you so much. I'm Victoria Optoff Cordero. I'm a resident of Lower Saucon Township. I also am a spokesperson for the Citizens for Responsible Development. You heard from some residents in the Lehigh Valley that are a part of the organization, but they formed back in November, as many of you know, when it became apparent that there was an attempt to landfill on top of 275 acres of land, 200 of which were part of a conservation easement placed on the land in 1994. I've been before you last month. I gave you lots of updates then. I appreciate your time. I appreciate Ms. Zirinsky placing this on the agenda again this evening. From last month, because I think all of you were here the last time, so I don't want to repeat myself over the things. But since I was before you last month, we had some very important event happen. Because the landfill had presented a development plan to the township in mid-September, the citizens that had lodged litigation against the landfill because of the conservation easements asked the court for an emergency injunction to prevent any disturbance or destruction of the forest pending the court's review of the litigation over the conservation easements. And so St. Luke's University Health Network, Bethlehem Township, and I believe Attorney Aztec was there on behalf of the litigants. They all appeared with witnesses ready to go. That was, I think, last week or the week before. I'm losing my track of my weeks, but it was after I was here before you. And I am happy to report that meeting culminated in a successful stipulation that would preserve the forest and any kind of development on the forest until the court were to rule on the outcome of the conservation easement litigation. Another very important thing is that it gives anybody that's a litigant in that case the ability to receive a notice, a 30-day notice, if the landfill were to attempt to log or do any kind of forest deforesting activities. Because I'm sure, as you know, if you cut down a 100-year-old tree, even if it's by accident, you can't ever replace it. And certainly not in our lifetime would we ever see the 100-year-old tree again. So I wanted to report that because I think it speaks volumes to the amount of support that is in the Lehigh Valley on this issue and the amount of dedication that's here. It is, as you heard some of them say, it's been about a year since this project came forward in our township, and so much has happened since then. And we are excited that you have brought this back before you again. One other thing I wanted to update you on is a lot of people like to rely on what inspections occur and the frequency of monitoring that is required by the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection. And the DEP does have rules and regulations, and they all start from the state. So the state tells them you have to monitor this and you have to get reports. And I think the big important thing to note is that while the DEP monitors and asks for reports, it doesn't necessarily turn into action or change, and it can't prevent some of the inevitable issues that you have with a landfill, especially on a very steep slope mountain. To give you an idea, in August just of this year, the landfill was cited for violations that included threats to the public health and safety. The violations were significant enough that they posed a threat to the health and safety, and that was in August of 2023. The municipal waste landfill inspection report received by the township on October 12th, and I'll just indicate this to you as an example. It says the inspector and Mr. Hubert drove to the southeast corner of the landfill. Strong odors were detected in the area. A leachate seep was being repaired close to the corner. Excavated waste was observed being dredged, and strong odors were detected from the operation. They had been trying to do repairs. It said the area that had been repaired the day of the September 20th inspection, which was just the week prior, showed additional erosion. So right now, just to give you an idea, the DEP is inspecting this landfill more than once a month. And you might know, Mr. Cusick, that means that they're on high alert because they're coming out of all the places in the state, they're coming to our landfill more than once a month. So this inspector was at our landfill the week prior, and he identified concerns. And then this report shows that since the week prior, there was additional erosion, and they requested corrective action, which I can tell you I was at a landfill committee meeting in Lower Saucon today. Our landfill committee meets quarterly right now. That was one of the changes our township made, was to reduce the oversight. So we don't have them every month, but we did have one today, and it just happened to be on the night of your meeting. So I was able to attend that, and it appears that they're still having to address that. They've had to put additional gas wells in the location of this odor issue they've had, which is dating back to June, in a specific spot of the current active landfill. So I'm not talking about an expansion, I'm talking about the current permitted space of our landfill. And it's just an example I wanted to provide to you because it shows you that there are significant issues that come with a landfill that go over time, and as you pile more and more garbage on the same spot, those issues get exacerbated. And when you're talking about a landfill on a specific, very environmentally sensitive area of the township, of the Lehigh Valley, of Northampton County, the chances of you having a catastrophe are very high, in my opinion. And it's just my opinion, but based upon the records that we already have, it's clear that they have an erosion issue, they have a gas monitoring issue, they have an odor issue, and that's on the 200 acres they currently have. So if we're going to consider adding to that on steeper slopes, on areas that go right over to the river, to me, that's a threat to our public health and safety. And I want to thank this committee, because I know you're a committee and some of you have to come back at 6:30, and I know you have the resolution on your agenda. But I wanted to really just give that as an example to you, to indicate. They also noted that there were 24 odor complaints lodged in just the last month for this particular landfill. And if you didn't know, the reporting process to report an odor to the DEP is very onerous. So the DEP regulations and the way that they're interpreted by our northeastern section of the DEP that's assigned to our landfill, if you call in an odor complaint and it's after hours, it goes to one spot where they may catalog it, but if you don't live at a residence or are not currently occupying a business, they don't send out anybody to inspect the odor to verify that the odor is in fact from the landfill and that whatever level of odor it is, mild, moderate, severe, whatever. And if you don't have a DEP inspector come out, you can verify an odor on a DEP report. Residents will report odors, but it will take days and sometimes weeks for an inspector to come out to their residence. And I'm sure, as you know, odors come as the wind blows. So we sit here, whatever, it might be 5:30, 5:45, and you might smell a really bad odor on your property. By the time an inspector comes to determine if that odor is real, it might be the next day. The winds have changed, the weather's changed, lots of things have happened. And so it's very difficult for the residents that live in and around a landfill to, number one, be able to get a positive reaction from the DEP on a report on a timely basis. And it's very difficult for them to continuously call because they also have to be home when that inspector comes. So if they're on their way to work, they're on their way to do anything, they have to stop everything and wait for that inspector to come out. And I'm not saying to disparage any DEP person for not doing their job. They're doing what they are supposed to do. They're doing everything they can do, and I think they're trying their best. But I think it's just an example of why it's so important that our local municipality and our county do what we can to really share our concerns with the state and to protect our natural resources when we can. And I think this is, again, a monumentous evening because I'm hopeful that our county council will again reaffirm their support that they offered back in January or February. And if they do so, I think you will be not only the leader in the Lehigh Valley, but you will be the leader in the state for our residents. And I appreciate everything that you are doing. So I'm going to hold off anything else for the council meeting because most of you will sit and listen to me again. And I don't want to waste your time. So if there's any questions, any other new issues that I can provide insight on, I'd be happy to do so.
Right. I think it's important to acknowledge that just because you had this emergency injunction and the stipulation, the judgment in your favor, that this doesn't end this situation, because somebody even asked me, do we even need to do this anymore because they won? No, you didn't win yet. We're hoping that you do, but there's a timeline of events, and I think that we know that many times if a company is trying to do something, they schedule these things around the holidays. And I do know that the holidays are coming up, and I want to make sure that we have this done so that it is in your hand.
Yeah, so the stipulation was very important to protect the status quo, but it by no means is a decision that is a final determination on what happens to this land. And it by no means is something that we can sit back and say, we don't need to speak up anymore, and we don't need to provide support. There are many different agencies and departments in the state government that we are hopeful to reach out to, and your guidance and support in providing your resolution to those state officials is something we're very much looking forward to. In addition, this is just the first step in the different litigation measures that are happening. So there's the conservation easement case, which now is currently protecting the forest from any logging or, clear cutting of the land that would devastate the community. But there are also 2 other zoning appeals that are going on that have just started, and that will take a very long time. And I think I can tell you on the August 30th hearing that our township held to rezone this property once again, we attempted to introduce the record from the 2022 ordinance that was passed in December of 2022. And some of the comments from our council was that, well, that was the old ordinance and nothing applies from there. This is new one, and that nothing that you did before is applied. We're trying to start over. So that gave me the indication that yes, and I'm hopeful that you will see it the same way, that we do in fact have to reaffirm our support. And you all know that whenever there's something so important, nobody's gonna just walk away after the first complaint, after the second complaint. But the community stays unified. I always say, together we will win. And it is beautiful that I can see in a climate that can sometimes be very contentious and people have very, very strong opinions that don't agree with each other, that we can sit here as one Northampton County and agree on this. And so, yes, this is the very beginning, but the affirmation by the county on their position on this issue is very, very much appreciated, and I think it's necessary.
Mr. Lott?
So just to clarify in my head, what I read, this is a temporary injunction, correct?
It's in place, it's a stipulation, so there was, so give you it's not, there was no hearing, ultimately, the parties stipulated and the judge approved that stipulation to provide certain parameters and protections until the judge makes a decision.
And I mean, from what I understand, they're still allowed to, if they check or announce it, or however you want to say it, they can still do test bores, they can cut trees down to get that equipment in. So to say, I don't know who's out there saying this was a win, this was to me, this was just slow it down a little bit until we can get through the hearings, which, you know, thank goodness and congratulations, but I don't think this is by any means near the end.
Oh, no, and to your point is, it provides a layer of protection and notice. So they own the entire 275-acre tract, and there's a lot of land in there that nobody can watch what's going on. This layer of protection allows anybody who's a party to that litigation to go back to court if there was an application made for logging, application made for testing, or to bring in heavy equipment, that residents could go in and oversee that and make sure that that process is done in a conservative way that protects the forest, and if necessary, ask for additional court relief. But it's only the first step, and it's just it's a Band-Aid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. King?
Yeah, a couple questions to follow up on that. Right now, this is at the Court of Common Pleas level on appeal for what has been already passed. Am I correct in that?
So the declaratory judgment action, which was the easement case, I give names to them at this point in time. The easement case is sitting at the Court of Common Pleas. Yes. There is a procedural challenge, again, to the way in which the township enacted the underlying zoning to their new zoning ordinance. That is also with the Court of Common Pleas. There's a third action called a substantive validity challenge, which basically says, even if they did a procedure the right way, this land was inappropriate for rezoning for a number of reasons. You might have heard contract zoning, spot zoning, all of those key terms are contained in that litigation. That starts off at a zoning hearing board as the first level. So that case hasn't begun yet, but it is supposed to start at the township's zoning hearing board.
And if I recall, the question was, they removed the conditional use.
Yes, they did.
Special exception or conditional use?
Well, prior to 2022, it was always a special exception. 2022 ordinance that was voided was a conditional use. And unfortunately, the ordinance in 2023 that they passed changed it to permitted as of right.
Yeah. So then the next question that you mentioned about the forestry piece. I mean, I haven't digged into your zoning code, but typically forestry is permitted as an agricultural use or an economic use. I know you have a temporary injunction, but what would prevent forestry from occurring on the location, even if it were not a landfill?
So that goes back to the conservation easements.
Okay.
So, and the stipulation requires notice. So, yes, if our township does have, logging ordinances or forestry regulations, and I can't speak
Okay, so
directly,
that's
but.
covered under the
But
conservation easement?
that would be, that would fall under the conservation easement, that the conservation easement specifically requires that the land stay in its natural and scenic state for the benefit of the Delaware and Lehigh National Heritage Corridor. So that language in and of itself speaks against any logging, and there was very specific items that were permitted on the land that identified what you could do. So right now, if they wanted to do, a use that was logging or something to that effect, they would have to give the litigants notice, and the litigants would then have the opportunity to go to court. The other very important thing about that is before they could submit an application to do that activity, and right now we don't have any guarantee or indication from our township officials that they would give anybody notice that they received the application for logging. So it's another level of protection that gives people the ability to go and protect it if they think they need to.
Okay, yeah, because typically in an ag zone, forestry is something that's usually permitted with an application. You mentioned the leachate. Does that go to the Bethlehem sewer plant for treatment? Is that how?
Yes, right now, the current landfill footprint, there is a direct line that takes the leachate that they collect directly to the municipal wastewater treatment plant operated and owned by the city of Bethlehem.
That's interesting. Because Schrin has one that goes directly to Easton. They have their own private line. We never knew that until we went through some of this.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting how they managed to do that. The next part about the leachate, the folks that were here, do they have wells and septic systems, or are they on public water
Say
and
they're
sewer?
wells.
Anybody that lives along Reddington Road is all well water and septic.
So
There is.
they may have an issue. That's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is a section of Apple Butter Road that was provided public water services because of a prior water contamination issue from this landfill. So those people are on public water. I think that happened in the 90s because of contamination of an unlined area that leached into the water supply and those people's well systems. But the upper, where some of this landfill is proposed to go, the upper portions of Apple Butter Road are then serviced back to well. So
Okay, so is there a potential to service these folks by public water and sewer, or at least public water?
Well, Lower Saucon Township is majority serviced by well water. There is a section on the other side of the township, which does have we have a water authority, and they have water and sewer, but those lines like stop when you reach Hellertown, and then there's Hellertown, and they have their own system of their own authority, and then you have the rural section of the township, which goes all the way up into Williams Township.
Very
So,
familiar with it.
so Reddington Road, there really is not any public water anywhere nearby there, and that would be, and again, we're talking about Riverside Drive, which is right along the railroad and the river, so then we're gonna try to excavate that area to put in a public water line. I would suspect that would be very difficult to get to the areas of Reddington Road and Riverside
Okay, so
Drive.
if anything happens, there's really no potential to service that area with public water or sewer.
They would have to extend what's in Steel City, and they have a water tower which has to be filled with water first and foremost. So it would be a complicated thing. I mean, I'm not an
Yeah, it would
engineer and
be
I'm not a water specialist, but
Yeah.
but there is a line in Steel City that ends in Steel City, as far as I understand.
Yeah, because we're Schrin, we have some, in the Glendon area, it's had to be served by public water because at one point it was a Superfund site. And then the other piece is the host agreement. Was that passed as part of the zoning, and will that go into effect? How is that?
Yeah, so.
Where does that fit into the whole matrix?
The host agreement was approved the same day that they did the rezoning with permitted as of right. I believe the language in the host agreement indicates that it does not take effect and supersede the current host agreement until Phase 5, which is this expansion, would receive final approval. So they're not, right now, there's litigation over the zoning, there's a conservation easement question, and all of those things have to be satisfied before they get final DEP permit approval, which would then trigger the beginning of the new host agreement, which I had brought up last time, talks about there's no
So there's no immediate benefit to the the township as a
No.
result of?
No, the current, the landfill is under Phase 4. They just received approval for that. That Phase 4 is subject to the prior host agreement. There is no economic benefit, additional economic benefit happening to the township. And there's no threat that whatever you do today would impact that host agreement.
All right, well, thank you for the update.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your time.
So can I ask one more question?
Sure.
When do you, is there any scheduled court date for the resolution of the substantive validity challenge or the easement case or the procedural challenge?
Yeah, there's a number of different hearings coming up.
Are they all heard in different hearings, or are they heard in one hearing concurrently?
No, they all have their little bubble that their tracks. So you think like a racetrack, and you have car A, B, and C. So each piece of litigation goes down its own lane and may be slowed or accelerated and do something different than another case. And one case, as you saw in May, one case, if a decision is made on one case, it may impact the continuation of other cases. So we have a substantive validity challenge and a procedural challenge. If either one of those cases are successful, then everything is voided again. On the zoning side, I think the conservation easement case would survive that. As far as upcoming hearings, the zoning hearing board in Lower Saucon is set to have, at least they've placed it on their agenda, the substantive validity challenge. Historically, they did choose to not hear the case and have it go to Northampton County Court. So they may or may not do that on Monday. I believe that there were some they're called preliminary objections that were filed in the easement case. And I believe they may or may not begin hearing the issues on those in December in Northampton County Court. And the procedural challenge, it's been filed in court, and I think they're waiting on the certified record from the township and that process there. So as far as upcoming hearings go, there's one on Monday, and then there may be ones in December from the Northampton County Court's perspective. And yeah,
So you need kind of like a flow chart just to organize all the court dates and the hearing and things like that?
I guess you could look at it that way.
Yeah, a track record.
So you just have to look at each case and how they proceed differently. They all proceed a little bit differently, and sometimes what one does will affect the other.
Right. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to the resolution consideration at the 6:30 meeting.
Yep, and
Thank
this
you.
is already on the agenda, so we don't have to move it forward, am I correct? Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
So I did see that Mr. Cope entered the room. Is there anything that you wanted to say? Not at this time. You're just here for the show? Okay, just checking. All right, I did want to acknowledge you just in case you wanted to say anything. All right, then I guess our meeting is adjourned, okay? Thank you.